All right, Namaskar, and a very warm welcome to everyone joined in today on our 22nd Know Your Species, Know Your Zoo talk. This talk is being organized by the Central Zoo Authority, New Delhi, as part of the ongoing Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav. The Mahotsav is a 75-week-long celebration to commemorate 75 years of India's independence, which falls on the 15th of August 2022. The Central Zoo Authority is taking this celebration forward through a massive outreach campaign entitled Conservation to Coexistence, The People Connect. Under the helm of this campaign, we will be showcasing 75 conservation priority species and 75 zoos, highlighting one species and one zoo each week. We are currently in week 22 of the Mahotsav with the Indian wolf as the species in focus and the Nahargarh Biological Park as the zoo in focus. Joined in today to speak to us on the species is Dr. Bilal Habib. Dr. Bilal is a conservation biologist and is currently serving as a senior scientist and head of the Department of Animal Ecology and Conservation Biology at the Wildlife Institute of India, Dehradun. He has done his doctorate from the Aligarh Muslim University on the ecology of the Indian wolf from Maharashtra and has 2 decades of research experience in the field. His interests lie in the integration of quantitative and interdisciplinary approaches to conservation challenges and in integrating science-based solutions to infrastructural development. His current research spans across different landscapes of India whilst looking into the ecology of carnivores. He will speak to us today more on the species in focus, which is the Indian wolf. Over to you, sir. So please unmute yourself.
Thank you so much for your introduction. I will just try to share my presentation. Is it fine?
So just put it in presentation mode.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, is it visible?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So today is one of the most important species of our grasslands. We typically call this species the ghost of Indian grasslands because this is the species which shares its habitat with humans to a great extent. And still, if you ask people, have you seen this particular species? I think 90% of the people will never have seen this particular species in spite of being next door to us. So that's why we, as a people who work on this particular species, we literally say that these are the ghosts of the Indian grasslands. So my today's talk will be based on my experience, my research on this particular species, spanning over the last 2 decades. So I have tried to summarize this in a fact so that it's more visible, it's more understanding to the people who are not connected to this particular aspect. So, like when we talk about Indian wolves, what comes first to our mind is the grasslands. And if you go to the evolutionary context of grasslands, so they evolved around 500 million years ago, and grasslands are actually the evolutionary labs where most of the ungulates have evolved, where grazing has evolved. And people believe that the existence of the grasslands is dependent on the existence or the grazing pressure, the grazing by the ungulates. So you can't separate the ungulates and the grasslands. You can't separate them from one another. So it's a very complex ecological food web. And in this particular food web, wolf has one of the very critical roles. And if you see in world, we have something around 20 to 30% of the world is a grassland area. And if you consider our country, something around 24% of the India's geographic line is the grasslands. And we probably most of the people consider these grasslands as a wastelands because in some particular aspects, people classify them as a wastelands. But to us, these are not the wastelands. These are actually the breathing lungs of our land. So the grasslands are an integral part of the wolf ecology. That's why if anybody tries to tries to give a presentation of wolf or talk about the wolf conservation in India, it can't be separated from the grassland conservation in India. And when you talk about a relationship between wolf and humans, and I think every person in this country or in this particular planet knows about the Mowgli story. So this is a story of a kid who was raised by the wolves. There are a lot of movies about this particular aspect. And whenever we talk about a wolf, whenever we talk about the pinch forests, what comes to our understanding is this particular movie. So is this particular story. So like there are so many animals in this particular universe. So whether this is a truth this is just the story, we don't know about it. But the very interesting aspect, which I want your attention towards this particular aspect, why that particular person, say Rudyard Kipling, choose a wolf for his story? Why not a tiger? Why not a leopard? Why not a rhino? Why not an elephant? So that tells us our relationship with this particular species, because historically we have been associated with this particular species. So that takes me to this particular important aspect of our evolution. So probably this is one of the artistic representation of a Cambrian period when there were a lot of animals, and when we humans were as one of the species in that particular system, and we were living like the other animals were living. So, so the context of the wolf as a part of the human society is beyond the context what we see today. So at that particular time when we were sharing our habitat, when we are sharing our life with animals as one of the animals of the system, not the animal at that particular place who was trying to control the entire system, but as a human being, he was associated with the system. So the first animal which probably we tried to domesticate was wolf. Now, the first domestication is not a domestication by chance. So it's a well thought of a domestication. So at that particular time, we realized that the human beings at that particular time realized that they need a companion who's going to be with them in the jungles. And that companion has to be faithful, that companion has to be tough, and then that companion has to have all the qualities which that earlier human being was expected to have from that. And the choice was the wolf. So at that particular time, we as humans realized that wolf is going to have all those particular qualities which we need as a companion to exploit this universe. So the first domestication was the domestication of a wolf. So it was not just an idea to domesticate any animal from the wild, but it was a well thought of a domestication. So that tells us our association, our evolution, and what we are as a human beings today. That tells the context with that tells of a context that why we are sharing the habitat and our entire evolutionary process with this particular species. And we definitely we call a wolf as a face changer. If you see that all the dogs, they have evolved from wolf, and if you see today there are 900 varieties of dogs, and none of these two dogs have a same face. That's why we call that, once we say that the varieties of these dogs across the globe, there are 900 varieties. That's why we call wolf as a dog, as a wolf as a face changer. So that tells, so this particular aspect tells us the the genetic makeup which this particular species has, and the ability to evolve into different individuals or different subspecies or different subgroups across the evolutionary timing. So so now if we consider what we have, so this particular map shows the distribution of a gray wolf across the world. And we had some around 38 species initially. Out of these 38 species, 13 species are not there now. And in India, we have two species of the gray wolf. We have a gray wolf which is in peninsular India. It's called the Canis lupus philippes, and the wolf which is in the Himalayas. So there is again a taxonomic confusion about the wolves in the Himalayas. People say that there probably are the two species. Some people argue that no, there is only the one species. And some people argue that probably the wolves of the Himalayas are the ancient wolf. But there are now recent studies which probably tell the wolves from the peninsular India are probably the ancient wolves on this particular planet. So these debates will continue to be there in the science, and people will try to understand this in much detail as we go more up in this particular aspect. So these are the two species which occur in India: Himalayan wolf. People also call it a Tibetan wolf. It is a Canis lupus chanco. There is again a proposal: should we call it a Canis himalayensis or Canis lupus chanco? So that proposal is still pending there. Its distribution is in Ladakh and Lahore and Spiti and Himachal and other areas of the Arunachal Pradesh also. And we have the other wolf species, which is the smallest one, It is in the peninsular area, dry area, central parts of the in India, Rajasthan, Maharashtra, Gujarat, and it goes up to Karnataka, up to south, and it's also found in the West Bengal, and it's the Indian wolf, which is also called as a Canis lupus pharynx. So these are the majorly two species of the wolves which are found in India, and the difference is that Himalayan wolf has a thick woolly fur, and that's dull, earthy brown and black, and has a black tail, black and tail tip. It's a yellowish white on the face, belly, and the limbs. And in fact, when I'm giving this particular presentation, I'm staying in the Ladakh only and trying to see some of these individuals. They weigh around 35 kgs. They are much larger than our Indian companion, the Canis lupus philippines. Their body length is also up to 170 centimeters, and their shoulder height is around 76 centimeters. So when you compare this with Indian species, it's an Eurasian wolf species. It has a long legs as compared to Himalayan wolf, and it's around 57 to 72 centimeters. The shoulder height is around much smaller than this. So males are something around 19 to 25 kg, whereas females are around 17 to 22 kg. So much smaller than our Himalayan wolf or Canis lupus chanco is the Indian wolf, which is Canis lupus philippines. So, so this wolf is an apex predator of Indian grasslands, and we know that Indian grasslands are they have one of the very rich biodiversity. They are an amazing ecosystem. We have an endemic species. We have the species which are only found in these particular grasslands. We know that GIB, which is critically endangered species, shares its habitat with Indian wolf. We had a species, the cheetah was also sharing its habitat with Indian wolf, but we know that cheetah is as of now extinct from our country, and there are plans to reintroduce cheetah back to our country. But other than cheetah, our grasslands are still rich in biodiversity. We have a black buck, which is an endemic antelope to India. We have a jungle cat. We have an Indian fox. We have a jackals. We have a lot of varieties of other species which are associated with Indian wolf in this particular habitat. That means when we consider Indian wolf as a part of our grassland ecosystems, we're not only talking about this particular species, we are really talking about a rich biodiversity associated with this particular species. And a lot of these species are either in an endangered list or critically endangered list. The reason behind that is we know that grassland ecosystems, a lot of people don't consider them as a forests, and a lot of people probably classify these lands as a wastelands. And there's a lot of pressure on these particular ecosystems. And this is one of my favorite photographs, and this represents the iconic nature of this particular species. You can see the wolf on top of a hill, and the chinkaras looking at that particular animal. So this particular photograph tries to classify this particular species as one of the keystone species upon which the entire system, the entire biodiversity of these particular grassland ecosystems depend on. So if we are able to conserve, if we are able to protect this particular species in our ecosystems, probably we are able to protect a lot of many other species which are specific to these grassland ecosystems in our country. And in fact, we will be able to protect the vast grasslands of our country, which are very critical for human beings in this particular system. So we all know they are social groups, they are social candidates, and they live in groups. And these groups, they have a very intricate social bonds. And it's like group living has an advantages and group living has disadvantages. So over the time, this species has evolved to live in a groups, and that group has a very strong hierarchies in that particular system to make it live. We all know that we, as a human societies, we are living in a families, and we know that how difficult is it to live in a bigger families and how easy it to live in a smaller families. So it's exactly the same pattern that if the wolves are living in a larger groups, what type of the social mechanism is associated in a larger group, and if they are living in a smaller groups, what type of social mechanisms are required to live in a smaller groups. So actually we have to learn a lot of social bonding from this particular species. So they are social candidates. They live in packs as one of the most important aspect of their ecology, and very important aspect of their breeding ecology, that breeding rights are only with the adult packs. That means only the alpha members of the pack will breed. It's not like any person, any member of the family is going to breed and producing young ones. That's not case with the wolf societies. So if you are a member of the pack, the breeding right is only with the alpha members of the pack. That helps in regulating the population, that helps in regulating the pack territories, and that helps also in the regulation of the pack members in that particular system. So it's one of the very interesting mechanisms to regulate the social organization within the packs. And very interesting thing, they recognize their individuals from the howl. So howl is one of the very interesting modes of the communication of this particular species, and they recognize each other from their individual howls, even scats and even scent stations. And there's a very interesting, and wolf territories are very large, their home ranges are very large. Initially, 10 years before, we were thinking that wolf home ranges are around 150 or 200 square kilometers, but the present studies, they show that the wolf home ranges are something around 200, 250, 300 square kilometers. So there's a very interesting information transfer mechanism. Now you have a 300 square kilometer of a territory, and as a pack, if you have to go and patrol this particular territory, so entire pack can't go and have a visit to its particular territory. So they divide different individuals into subgroups, and these subgroups go into different parts of the territory. Now, if a subgroup comes up with a different individuals in their territory, how they are going to transfer this particular information. So what they do, these individuals roll on the scats or the scent of the other individuals and put that scent on their body. So once they come together as a group and they ask their individuals, please come and smell me, because in that particular area, there are some new individuals coming in our territory. Then as a group, they go and they patrol that particular territory in a much detail, with a more in a very rigorous way. So that's a very interesting sort of a system of information transfer if the different individual go to different parts of the territories. They are a long dispersal species. That means they dispersal, there's a information available that the wolves, they disperse from thousands of the kilometers from one particular pack to other particular pack. So there is no question of inbreeding. So there's a very less chances that there's a probability of inbreeding in this particular species. So this species is adaptable to exploit human-dominated landscapes. So initially, once I told that this is the species which has evolved with humans over time. So they are sharing the habitat with us from a very long time. So that means over the time, they have evolved to exploit the human-dominated landscape. So they're one of the most intelligent species to exploit the landscape next to us. That's the only reason they are surviving today. So it's one of the most adaptable species to exploit the human-dominated landscape to survive with humans. So they are an omnivorous species. So if you see this particular slide, there are some bunch of grapes on one side. So wolves even eat grapes. So it's an omnivorous species. There are 30 to 40 different prey species which they eat. But the five most dominant prey species is the black buck, chinkara, livestock, and they also scavenge. So if you see as on today, the 60% of the wolf's diet is domestic livestock. So that is one of the most interesting challenge when we try to understand how we are going to conserve wolf in this changing world in a human-dominated landscape, because they are dependent on livestock. They are dependent on goats and sheep, which is one of the livelihood of the communities. We share their habitat with wolves in our country. So this is one of the greatest conservation challenges, probably, which we have to think about the conservation of the wolves in this particular country. And now, as I initially told, that they are our next door neighbors. So living next door to us, they are our neighbors, but there is a cost associated with it. So this particular slide shows the GPS telemetry data of some of the individuals from Maharashtra. So if you see that this is a big town of Sholapur, and all these individuals are very close to Sholapur, and these lines are the roads. And if you see this particular slide, so how they integrate, so this is the home range of the one pack. So how this one pack tries to exploit the human dominated landscape. So how they negotiate their special use of a landscape in a changing world. In a changing world, what I mean to say is, I've just shown the bigger roads. So other than these bigger roads, there are a lot of smaller roads which are in this particular landscape. So they have to exploit, they have to use this particular landscape. Now, every day, Bulus are using our roads in a similar way like we are using. But in spite of that, we are not able to see that. So I told you initially, so when there was the initial study on this particular species in Maharashtra, we expected a home range of around 200 square kilometers. Now this home range has gone to 300, 325, 284, and 399 square kilometers. So that is a challenge. That's one of the very interesting aspects. So initially the areas which used to have multiple packs, 2 to 3 packs of the wolves, they only have one pack right now. So what is now happening is the number of packs in our country are changing. So in 10 years before, if we had something around 200 packs in our country, that number of packs may be 50% less as on today. The reason behind is so wolves have a tolerance for the villages. So they try to exploit the landscape if the villages are on an average 1 kilometer away from that particular areas. But the distance between these smaller grassland patches and the villages is decreasing that day by day, which results in a lot of habitat which these wolves are not able to exploit. So that's one of the way. So the grasslands are not decreasing. So if you visualize this in a very interesting way, our grassland patches are not increasing, but the distance between the grassland patch and the village is decreasing because the villages are growing up, which results in that wolves are not able to exploit or use that particular habitat. So that's one of the very interesting and important aspect we have to look when we are thinking about the conservation of this particular species in a human dominated landscape. So this particular, I will like stop and will request you listen to this. So this particular noise which you heard is like is a communication, different types of the communication. Howl is one of the main mode of the communication. It travels a long distance. It can be heard from a long distance, and you can identify different individuals from a particular howl because when when they start howling, the different individuals they start at a different time. So you will know that this one individual started say at 10:10, so other individual may start at 10:10:10. So you will know that when one individual peaks, the other individual starts again. So you have a continuous howl of multiple individuals at the same time. So this may help you in identifying the number of individuals. And now we have a mechanisms to use these number of howls to identify each and every individual from a particular pack. So this is one of the promising tools which can be used to estimate the population of the wolves in our country. So we are working on this. We are trying to see that this can be one of the very popular and one of the very promising tools which can be used from the population estimation of the wolves. But one of the very interesting things which we have found that those grassland patches which are very close to human habitation on an average of around 700 meters from a human habitation. So if wolves are 700 meters from any habitation, so they are not going to howl in that particular landscape. Now, day by day, if this distance is going to reduce, if there is a change in this particular distance, say if all our grassland patches are within 500 meters from villages, then wolves are not going to howl because if they are howling, that makes them more prone to other aspects of the disturbance. So they, in order to hide themselves, that they are not very close to these particular villages, they are not going to howl. So if these individuals are not going to howl in future, what is going to be the impact on their sociobiology is one of the very interesting aspects which we need to think how that's going to affect their ecology and how that's going to affect their behavior and how that's going to affect the long-term sustenance of these wolves in human-dominated landscape. So what we have used, we have considered the different wolf species across the globe. So these are the different wolf species. You see that this is a Himalayan wolf, and this is an Indian wolf. So they have a different frequencies. In other words, we have a one paper which talks about the wolves have a different dialects. What does that mean? The Himalayan wolf have a different frequency, and the wolves in the peninsular India have a different frequencies. And the peninsular wolf is very close to the Arabian wolf. They are the we call them, they are the cousins, and their frequencies are almost matching. So this again, like there's a very interesting group in UK which they work on the evolution of the languages, and they are also trying to understand the evolution of wolf howls, because initially I told that this is the only species which has evolved with humans. So there are a lot of answers hidden in this evolution of wolf howlers, and especially the dialect in wolf howlers across their distribution range. So that's one of the very interesting aspects of the research which people are working. So other very interesting behavior of the species is denning behavior, and this is one of the very critical aspect of the wolf ecology, and it really matters in human-dominated landscape, because wolf, like foxes, they don't live in dens throughout the year. So they only use dens only during the denning period, which in our country is December and January. So only during that particular time they use dens. Now, I already told that they live in human-dominated landscapes, but these landscapes are very close. They are our next door neighbors. Now, if during that particular time they den in a very close to the humans, it makes them very prone. It becomes easy for the people to see a wolf on a regular basis in a particular area, and which makes these denning wolves very prone to the disturbance by the humans. So it's one of the very interesting behavior, and there's a very interesting study. So how they exploit this human dominated landscape to den successfully. So this particular video will show you how typically the dens look like. And these young wolf puppies, when there are no adults in particular den, they just try to come out and they just try to explore this particular landscape. So at that time, they're really prone to disturbance. So in remote areas, if these dens are found by the people, they really block these dens by big stones, or even sometimes they even uh, fumigate or suffocate these dens by putting some burning wood inside these particular dens, which result in the death of these particular individuals. So this is one of the very this is one of the challenge which this particular species is facing in our country. So we have to think about how we are going to protect these areas where these particular species den. So these denning areas are are really critical for long-term conservation of this particular species in our country. So, so it's a changing habitat. I have already told that they live in a grasslands, and it's one of the, and these grasslands is next to our agricultural landscapes. And our agricultural landscapes are changing day by day. Our grasslands are being fragmented. We are seeing we have a lot of fences coming up. The areas are being developed for human habitations. We have an electric line. So these animals actually now they live in a changing landscape with us. So under these circumstances, how these species is going to survive this landscape is one of the very critical questions. So it's not only about the survival of the species, it's also about losing the extinction. We are talking about the extinction of the species, but there may be, before the species is going to become an extinct, there is probably the extinction of the behaviors. So wolves are known to howl, but if this behavior becomes extinct before wolves are going to be extinct on this particular planet, what is the effect that have on the behavior, on the ecology of the particular species? So the behavioral aspects are going to change. So that is one of the very important aspects which we need to track with this particular species, and the species which survives, which lives with us. So I am trying to uh, uh, conclude my presentation with this particular quote. This is a quote by David Misch. David Misch is one of the greatest wolf scientists who has worked on the wolves from last 80 years. So what he says that wolves are not our brothers. They're not our subordinates either. They are another nation caught up just like us in the complex web of time and life. So this signifies everything. They're not our brothers. They are not our sisters. They're not our subordinates. They are like us. They are one more nation which is with us and who is in this complex web of life, of time and life trying to serve. And what he says at the end is the best wolf habitat resides in human heart. They're our next door neighbors, and you have to leave a little space for them to live. So their survival only depends upon how we are going to treat this particular species, because this is the species who are associated with humans, because we are the people who have domesticated the first wolf, because we realize that our survival on this planet was dependent on the survival, the domestication of wolf. Our success is because of this particular species. Now, the survival of this particular species is how much of space we will leave for this particular species in this world. That's the only way we are going to have this particular species in this. So with this, I probably something. Just a second. Yeah. So this is one of the photographs which I every time show. So they are going to exist, but there's a long walk to existence, because they are in a complex web like we are in this particular world. So we hope that we as a humans are able to give back what they have given us, so that this particular species survives with us, with humans as a next door neighbors. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Bilal, for the extremely engaging presentation on the biology and ecology of the species in focus for this week. We will take question answers for this session once the zoo section ends. So we now move on to the section on the Know Your Zoo talk. So we have with us Mr. Ajay Chitora, who is the director of the Nahargarh Biological Park, and he's an Indian Forest Service officer of the 2012 batch. He's an engineer by training from the Indian Institute of Technology, Madras, and has been with the government of Rajasthan since 2012. He has worked in different areas in Rajasthan as the Deputy Conservator of Forest and has been involved in the management of different projects, notably the Lesser Florican project in Ajmer. He will be speaking to us today more on the zoo in focus and on the captive breeding of wolves that happen in the zoo. Over to you, sir.
Just a minute, actually. Thank you very much to Feature Day for giving us an opportunity. Just now, Dr. Bilal has given a very good talk on Indian wolf. Actually, this is the first time I will post it in a zoo, and we are a pioneer in Indian wolf. So, but listening to Mr. Bilal has enriched us basically, and especially to me, and looking forward to working with him in the future also. Today I'll be telling some like about Nagargarh Biological Park. It's a medium zoo. Basically, earlier there was a Jaipur zoo, which is situated in the heart of the Ram Nivas, is still now also. And there was two parts. It was established by Maharaja Savai Ram Singh II in the year 1876 in two parts in 5.73 hectares. One part was for big cats, the other part was for birds. The enclosure look was like heritage city. It was designed very beautifully at that time with whatever the knowledge and the architect available at that time. So after that, the purpose was education and recreation to people. There were Albert House also nearby. Ram Nivas Garden is and even famous for it. So they it sufficed it part till I think it to an extent till 2000. But after that, there was a need and a guidelines from the CJD in 1992, for which a Nahargarh Biological Park was set up. This is the bird eye view of the Nahargarh Biological Park. Means beautifully placed. I have seen many biological parks throughout this country, but I'll say with conviction that this is place is one of the most beautiful places. The surrounding is especially resembles with the forest, so everything is like perfect mess. The animals which are now kept from the earlier zoo now in this zoo, so they are more in as in forest rather than in any other biological. So this park is situated on the Aravalli Hills. It is a unique blend of forest, also historical. Also, there are so many podis and a, a small forts out there, having a three type of ecosystem. Mainly, all the ecosystems are there because whatever the winds come from the west, there's a deposition of the sand also. So there's a desert ecosystem, a wetland in a Ramsagar, and a Aravalli ecosystem is there. It's very well connected from all the places. It's on a Delhi Jaipur route, so somebody coming from Delhi, it's approachable. Somebody coming going from Jaipur city is also approachable, and it's nearby to Amer and all other places. So it's in the midst of the tourist triangle, whatever or tourist circle we can. Part of Nagargarh Sanctuary and its spread is 720 hectares total, in which some around 116.72 hectares is diverted for non-forest activities for this park basically. Nowadays, I think it is not needed this diversion of land for the biological park, and it has a unique Lalit Vilas, Ganga Vilas, and many other monuments out there. It was declared in 1998. Later on, it was PJD master plan was approved in 2012, and then it was opened in 2016 for the public. Right now, many, I think 25 species are there in that. We'll talk about it. The main aim is simple as any other zoo in India to promote conservation and endangered wildlife. Basically, it helps in situ conservation also. Research studies on habitat behavior, breeding of various endangered wildlife species. Vision is very simple to keep the healthy animals in a ecosystem which is close to the nature, supportive to in situ wildlife conservation. Mission is sustenance of ex situ conservation of wildlife animal and in create awareness of wildlife habitat among the visitors and the people. This is the main thing, like 25 wildlife species which we are having right now in this biological park. It has a lion safari. It has an exotic park in which 20 hectares of area hippopotamus pair was there. A baby hippopotamus has born, I think, 1 year old nowadays. Big carnivores like lion, tiger, panther. Reptiles like crocodile and gharial. There are bird varieties of 285 species and many bird nests nowadays. The people who are going and watching, they keep on showing us the photographs of their basically habitat. And they are beautiful places like we'll show in pictures like Lalit Vilas, Ramsagar, Pura Ki Babri, and there are many talais and checkdams and any category. This was this was the map of the Nagar Biological Park of 720 hectares. I'll zoom. I don't think so that you will be able to see, but let me zoom in out if it is possible. I hope it will be visible now a little more. So it has an exotic park which is 20 hectares. This is the entrance, and there is another entrance out there of the main biological park. So this is an exotic park. We right now have hippopotamus, and we are trying for giraffe, zebra, other species to make it complete. The tiger safari is a future plan. We would like to have a tiger safari also in a 30-hectare area. There is a lion safari out here, which is currently operational. And we would like to have a walk-in aviary, the birds of prey, So this is our future planning. Right now we have, I don't think so that I can do more than this. Uh, so right now, so so I just switch on to this. I hope this map is visible more clear now.
It is, sir.
Yeah. So like I told, like we have one exotic park, we have future plan of tiger safari, then walk-in aviary, bird of prey of around 1 hectare. So we have 25 species. White tiger is included into tiger. So if white tiger is excluded, then it is 26 basically. So white tiger, sloth bear, gharial, crocodile, emu, desert cat. The blue one are the future planning in this part, which will be submitting a revised proposal to the FIJADE, and if we get approval, then we'll like to upgrade more. Then porcupine, wild boar, spotted deer, sambar deer, then we have sika deer, hawk deer. So we have a good varieties in deer also, which we are doing an in situ conservation. We right now have some around 4 lions, 3 sloth bears, 8 crocodiles, 10 gharials, 4 emu, and then about 19 cheetahs, sambar. They breed here, and almost all the species are breeding in the park. If something which we are trying for right now is the desert fox, which we have 2 male and 2 female. So they are four in they are 4 in number. They are also breeding. So we would like to see the spam deer breeding this year, which is the only species which right now I think currently non-breeding in our park. So we will try to do some habitat improvement for it so that it breeds in now. We have like Indian wolf. I will talk about we have 15 Indian wolves right now. So I would request also that as if some like PJ people come and visit, it's a beautiful landscape. Right now it rains, so it's green like evergreen forest here. So tiger, hyena, jackal, this is the wolf one. So here we have a display and we have other facilities also for the Indian wolf especially. So I hope like after this, in this current year we will be able to develop at least 1 or 2 facilities more out here in terms of tiger safari or walk-in aviary or completing our exotic park. Coming back to our original, is it visible? The screen one is Indian wolf conservation building.
Yes. Yes, it is
Yeah,
visible, sir.
thank you. So this is like as Mr. Bilal was saying, the den behavior. So we had a good breeding pattern of Indian wolf out here. We have made their habitat also some kind of soil muddy out there which they can play. And this picture, if you can see on the right of this in 2 pictures, so they were den, and in the den the wolf is there. So they breed out here. This is our year-wise wolf breeding. 2008-9 we have 2 male, so there was no chance anywhere. 2009 and 10 we have 1 male and 1 female. After that it breed. You can see in 2010-11 they were 6, 11-12 they were constant. As Madam was talked about in the beginning of the presentation, in the beginning of this week, that there was a problem in with the 7 was not increasing, but then with the help of some pattern, some change in the uh, basically eating habits and also basically feeding habits and also their structure. Then in 12 and 13 they were 14, 13 and 14 again 14, 14 and 15 they were 20. Then due to exchange the number came down, like we keep on exchanging Indian, giving Indian wolf to other Jew also. So the number came down to 15, 4 male and 11 female. Again they were 16, they were 22. So after and 12 again we have given some in exchange, so they become 12, 18, 19 they become 15, 19, 20 again they become 9 because we have given them exchange. Again in this year we have 15. So Rajasthan Forest Department in the Nahargarh Biological Park is successfully breeding from 12, 13 till 2021 right now. We are 15 right now and we are if we do our best that the number rises to some around 30, 35 basically. So that's a sustainable one in a sense. If something happens in future, like which happens to us, like coronavirus came or some another disease came, so we also after that also we would have sustainable population in around. We keep on giving to the other parks so that they also have pilot population out there. So if anything happens in any of the parks out there or in our parks, so we will still have a sizable population in India to have an in situ conservation of it. And not only Indian wolf, we have a tiger which we are doing a conservation and captive breeding is there. With the lion also, sloth bear, we have lion safari, which is right now our main charm of the park, along with the other things like the main park. The main other charm is lion safari. People do come here and visit. Recently on the Sunday, we have 5,000 visitors after the corona, which was the highest I think in around 2.5 years, something like that. So people are visiting more and more out here. We also hope that the virus goes down because the number of people coming out, there's chance of becoming a epic center also. So we hope that the now situation comes down to normal, and again people will see these animals, and we will try to develop some appetite for these animals, and will eventually help in conservation of these species later on whenever they will get a chance. So one time I was there in Ajmer as a DFO, and one farmer came out there. So just incident, so near to the colony. Then one of the kids says it said, ये तो सिर्फ जू में होता है मतलब. The language was like that. It's only found in zoo. So basically, they have seen in zoo, so they know only about zoo. They didn't see them in wild, so they don't know that they are found in wild also. So panther is like charismatic, and we have, I mean, the white tiger right now on the world tiger. They also there was a white and Indian royal. There's both are Indian royal tigers, but it's color in white and royalness. So beautiful picture of there on the front page of ours. So there are many activities which we keep on doing in the park. This is one of the main activity which, like, I think the others should also follow. It's tree transplantation. Any development project which goes in the city, many old trees of many species go uprooted out there. So what we do, we ask the city people, the Nagar Nigam or the JDA, to give us the tree and transplant it. They also help us. They bring the tree in on their own, and we give them a space and they transplant out here. And you can see the result, how beautifully that tree has been transplanted and successful out here. And many birds focus on it later on. So it helps both ways. Some things need development, so somewhere uprooting is needed, and then if it gets shifted, then it's very good for us and the wildlife. Then we keep on doing some training program, and we keep on doing the bird fair also. This is 25 Indian bird fair hosted here because Nahargarh, as I said, 285 bird species are also there. So it's a beautiful place to see the birds and birding also. People like children enjoying birding out here. Then we keep on celebrating some days out there, Tiger Day, Lion Day, and so like biological parks like kind of happening with every time some or the other activities. Then this is like in fortnightly or in a month it need to be done because so many people, some all are not that educated to have the cleanliness habit. So fortnightly we run this thing. We collect all the garbage in the park and we throw out, and the next Nagar Nigam or the JDA collect it and they take it to their dumping site. So basically, it helps in maintaining the aesthetic of the forest and also cleaning of all the things so that all things remain natural out there. And many people do support here. There are like many NGOs out there, so who keep on helping us in doing it. Right now, one NGO has collected some 45 tons of garbage in the sanctuary along with the park. So there are people who in and around which are nature lovers, and then we keep on educating children. They are our main audience. Basically, we focus on them a lot. We have few problems out here, like the staff shortage. Rajasthan Forest One as a whole is facing it. So we also running on a 50% of the staff right now. As it's Rajasthan, the scarcity of water is much more. So if the rainy days are becoming less, so the water table is going down. So water is another problem out there. And then there is a problem of like one or two villages are inside the sanctuary. So they don't go through the park basically, but they go from nearby of the park area. So the disturbance is always there. We would like to have some time if voluntarily the villagers wanted to shift out of the sanctuary, we would like to relocate them to other areas so that there's no noise out here. Then definitely we would like to have like funds problems is one of them. PJ also we would like to request that they fund parks more than before. And in wolf breeding, like we are the pioneers, so we should be also be recognized like Gujarat ones in that. And in online, as far as technology is concerned, I don't think the Rajasthan Forest Department is like the pioneer one. Uh, any for any purpose, like for this booking app was launched way back. The online ticketing system as FMDS is there not only for this biological park but for all the sanctuary national parks or conservation reserves. And nowadays the FMDS is like you can know what your nursery stocks and many other things like. So we are Rajasthan as a whole is pioneer in IIT, and so we are citizen friendly in a sense like citizens can book their tickets in advance, can come, and they'll hassle free entry is there. So I think it's one of the best. Some of the glimpse out there of the Nahargarh Biological Park. So there's something beautiful. People are like, this is our right now the main attraction of the park. And then these definitely. So as Dr. Habib said, this is very Vilas like this beauty out here. In Rajasthan and anywhere known for its structure. So we also have one of the palace out in the park only. So it's a palace for the I think our species, the Vilas. We have emergency services. Thanks a lot. These are in the den. So safe with the Rajasthan Forest Department also. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for the extremely insightful presentation on the Nahargarh Biological Park. We now move on to the question answer sessions for today's session. So firstly, we'll take questions for the species. Dr. Bilal, are you there?
Yes.
Okay, sir, so the first question for you is that among the subspecies of wolf found in India, Which one do you think is doing well and which one is under threat and why?
I think uh, I think the peninsular will be more under threat because they share the habitat with humans to a greater extent. But the Himalayan one is in low numbers than the peninsular one. So these are two different aspects. One is in low number, other is slightly more, but has a more threat. So if you say that in terms of the conservation priorities, so the both the species should be on the conservation priority.
So the next question for you is that wolves have also been persecuted for various myths and superstitions across the globe. What do you think can be done to mitigate this myth and prevent revenge killing and mindless persecution besides the administration of law?
Yes, I think the positive part of the story is it is the first animal which we have domesticated, and the human survival at that time probably was dependent on how well we will do with the wolves. Now it's time to give back. I think that's the only positive side which we can take and educate people that this is the species which was there with us at that particular time, and this is the species which should be with us. I think building on that particular positive direction may help us to wipe out those particular myths.
Okay, sir. And so the third question, the last question for you is that what is your advice to zoos for ex situ conservation for wolves? Do you think it is necessary? And if yes, then what aspects do you think should be taken up?
I think yes, because we know that this is a species which is in very risky zone because it is in human-dominated landscapes, and we don't know when we will be out of the context when we will lose this particular species. So we need to maintain a healthy stock of this particular species, especially the genetically healthy stock of this particular species in most of the zoos like Maharashtra specific, Rajasthan specific, Gujarat specific. So the advice to the zoos is we try to have a species from their individuals from their respective area, and if they are trying to breed these individuals and try to breed in such a way that we are not going to lose the genetic integrity of this particular species because that's the most critical aspect for their conservation. So if we manage them in a zoos with their genetic integrity, probably that may help us in the long run when we will have a shortage of individuals in the wild. So that's one of the very important aspects to consider.
All right, sir. So I think those are the questions for you. We now take our questions for the zoo. Mr. Ajay, are you there?
Yeah.
Sir, the first question.
Anyway, okay, can I ask you question to Mr. Balal? Mr.
Yes,
Balal?
sure, sir. Sure, sir. Go ahead.
Yeah. Actually, you said in the presentation that the villages, basically the villages nearby them, the wolf decided. And the villages are slowly expanding so that the area in between them and their habitat is decreasing. But as far as Rajasthan is concerned, like I've seen many areas out there where this wolf reside. The villages are not miss as far as agriculture practices, yes, they are increasing miss. They are more agriculture. So earlier there was less of it. Now they are more landscape where the agriculture is there. But the habitat wise, they are miss as a village habitat and the individual hamlets out there. They are not expanding miss. They are like constant or they might be decreasing because the people are migrating from the villages to the cities. So I would like to know that what is your take on this? Like which is more critical, like increasing the hamlet area or the village area nearby, or the this agriculture fields basically?
I think, see, the very important aspect is as of now, the threat is the breeding areas where they breed because that's a very critical area. And at that, since these grassland patches are very small, so when they are not breeding, so they use these smaller areas. So if you see a wolf close to a village today, probably you may see this wolf again after 15 days, after 20 days, because they have a huge area and they travel in that particular huge area. But what happens during breeding season when they den, when the pups are very small, so they restricted themselves in a very small patch of a grassland. So at that time, the detection by the villagers become very easy because they are dependent on water. They have to drink water because the water is one of the most critical factors. So in a places like Rajasthan, Like you also mentioned that water is very critical. So now this is a water source closer to the grassland patch. Wolves are also there, livestock is also there, people are also going there. So that's why the people come to know about, oh, there's a wolf coming, probably that has a den, and that results in the loss of these breeding individuals. So that is one of the very critical aspects. And then there are areas like there's a critical distance between the area which a wolf is using and the village. When I say the village, I say that the last house of the village towards that particular uh, grassland patch. Now, if today that last house is 1 kilometer away, that's fine. But slowly, that village boundary goes up, and this distance reduces. So up to 700 meters, it's fine for the wolves. But as soon as this distance is going to be 700, less than 700 meters low, the wolves probably are not going to use this particular patch for breeding at all. They may use it during the other parts of the time, but not at all. So probably if as of now we have 20 different patches where wolves are breeding, so you are not losing. So as when you look this as a manager, there is no change in grassland habitat. There is no change in forest. Forest is intact. But what has happened? That disturbance gradient has changed from the fringe. So if somebody asks us, like us, oh, this grassland patch was there 20 years before, then this grassland patch is still there. But why there are no wolves today there in that particular grassland patch? The answer is the grassland patch is there, but this village boundary has grown up. And what has happened? So when we talk about the conservation and the management, we don't visualize this particular threat. We always try to consolidate our area and say that our area has not changed. Nothing has happened. It is a better area now. So I have seen even in the Maharashtra, the grassland patches 20 years before, they are better now. They are much better what they were 10 years before. But 10 years before, there were wolves there, but they are not now because the villages have grown up. So this particular aspect needs to be visualized, I think, considered in when we talk about the conservation and management of these type of species. It may not be true for the wolves only, it may be true for other species only, the foxes, the GIB, the other lot of grassland birds.
Okay, yes. So, sir, now we move on to the questions for the zoo. So, Mr. Ajay, the first question for you is that what are the future plans for the zoo in terms of conservation outreach, or if there are any education initiatives that are currently being undertaken by the zoo?
Yeah, we like the most important is like the bird festival. We keep on in the bird festival also. We hold the bird festival near to the Nahargarh Biological Park. We keep many school children. We we take them to Nagargarh Biological Park in that area in that period. Also in the October when we conduct the Wildlife Week also. Then we try to reach as many schools as possible, and mostly schools which are in the remote and which who can't afford in a sense can come to the Nagargarh Biological Park in normal cases. Like many schools in the city which are very good, their parents would like their parents can afford and also take their children to the Nagargarh Biological Park. But those who can't afford, we try to reach them out there. And in terms of conservation, like we right now we are saying like we have 26 odd species. So I think in that only 7 species are there which are right now not breeding in our park. The rest of the species are breeding in our park, and like emu and all those things which we have just brought in. So we have data of the last 2 3 years. So we would like I told, like swan deer or the desert fox or even the Indian wolf, which we are breeding successfully. We keep on doing it. We would like that if some of the certain species which are out there, we would like to do the conservation in the park. We have future plans from the medium. We would like to go to the large zoo. And as I told, like every out there, tiger safari, and we would like to complete our park with the exotic portion with one species out there and two another more which we would like to have.
Okay. So, sir, I think you've also covered the second question, which was for you, which was that if there are any other species that you would like to take up for conservation breeding apart from the ones that you've showcased. I think you already covered that question. So, there's one last question for you that Were there any initiatives that you had taken, or any innovative initiatives that you had taken to mitigate the impact of COVID-19, especially in terms of the zoo management and animal welfare?
Yeah, like when the COVID came, nobody knows like how to tackle it. Even for the human beings also, we don't know how to tackle it. So for the parks, like there are many initiatives. First of all, the park was closed. So even though the park was closed, there was a regular feeding given to the animals. So we need to take the preventive mechanism, like whatever the keepers were there, we educated them. Then we improved the hygiene condition. We have taken a test of all the animals, big carnivores for the COVID test. Some like one of our lions, Tripur, was found positive in that case. Then again, he was found negative, so that was big relief for us. And then whatever the zookeepers, they take the feed out there, so we have put a liquid out there, out on the door only, so there all the things which they take in and their steps also become the neat and clean, and there is no virus which transmit basically. So this was when the zoo was closed. When the zoo got open, we taken all the precautions, like many human beings which are coming. Some might be COVID positive, some might not be asymptomatic. So we had a protocol, like every week we do a spray out there in the park on all the angles also, so that the animals didn't get affected. Also for the visitors, we educate them. Also we have a facility so that they hand wash and also sanitize their hands, go inside the park. So as far as possible, we would like to have we try to contain this disease, but still one of our lion got it and it become negative afterwards. So preventive mechanisms are there in the park, definitely.
Okay. So thank you, sir, so much. Those were the questions for you. And with this, we wrap up today's 22nd Know Your Species, Know Your Zoo talk. On behalf of CZA, I would like to thank both Dr. Bilal and Mr. Ajay for joining in, taking out time from your schedules and joining in for this talk. I would also like to thank the viewers who have been with us throughout this session. And I would like to inform them that next week, on the 18th of August, we will be having our 23rd Know Your Species, Know Your Zoo talk on the Indian crested porcupine and on the Sajangarh Biological Park, Udaipur. So do tune in for that talk as well from 4 to 5 p.m. And lastly, Nahargarh Biological Park will be continuing the outreach activities till Sunday of this week. So do join in for their outreach activities the way they have planned it. And lastly, thank you once again to everybody who joined in. Thank you to Dr. Bilal and Mr. Ajay. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you very much.